Criss opens up like never before about Ace Frehley's final moments. The laughter, the secrets, and the heartbreak no one saw coming. Criss has always been a man of deep emotion and raw honesty, and when he speaks about his time with Ace Frehley, there's a sincerity that cuts through the usual rock and roll bravado. Sitting down to reflect on those final moments, Peter's voice carries a weight that only decades of friendship, music, and shared history can produce. He begins by recounting the days leading up to Ace's last moments, painting a picture of a man who had lived on the edge, but still retained a spark that was uniquely his own. Ace was not just a bandmate, he was family in the truest sense. A brother whose presence could light up a room or cast a shadow over the darkest of days. Peter remembers those times vividly, describing how Ace's laughter would fill the studio, how his guitar would sing in ways that seemed almost otherworldly, and how despite the fame and the chaos, there was always a quiet, reflective side to him that few ever truly saw. Peter recalls the last conversation he had with Ace. The words exchanged carrying a mixture of nostalgia, concern, and unspoken understanding. They talked about music, about life, about the absurdities of the rock and roll lifestyle. And in that conversation, Peter noticed a subtle vulnerability in Ace. It was the kind of vulnerability that only emerges when someone feels truly safe with another person, a crack in the armor of a man who had always seemed invincible on stage. Peter reflects on how Ace had been struggling with the weight of expectations, the pressures of fame, and the relentless passage of time that seems to age some faster than others. Yet even in those moments, Ace maintained a spark of humor, a glint in his eyes that suggested he was still fully alive, fully present, and fully himself. As Peter delves deeper into the narrative, he describes the day leading up to Ace's final moments with a remarkable attention to detail. He remembers the sun streaming through the windows of the studio, the faint hum of the city outside, the smell of old guitars and cigarette smoke lingering in the air, and how Ace moved through the space with a combination of grace and casual carelessness that was quintessentially him. Peter recalls offering advice, sharing stories from their past, and trying to impart some small measure of wisdom or comfort, knowing that life had not always been easy for either of them. There was a moment when Ace smiled, that signature half-smile that could convey both mischief and melancholy simultaneously. And Peter felt a deep, almost spiritual connection in that instant. It was as if Ace was reminding him that no matter what happened, music and friendship were the things that truly mattered. Peter does not shy away from the pain of those last moments. He speaks candidly about the fear, the uncertainty, and the overwhelming sense of helplessness that accompanies watching someone you love face their own mortality. There is a rawness in his recounting, a vulnerability that makes the story feel real and immediate, rather than distant and abstract. He talks about the silence that followed certain moments, the quiet understanding that words could not capture everything, and the profound sense of loss that was already creeping in, even as Ace still breathed and laughed. For Peter, it was not just about the end of a life, it was about the closing of an era, the final notes of a symphony that had shaped his own existence in ways he could never fully articulate. Throughout the reflection, Peter intertwines memories of their early days in the band, the excitement of first tours, the rush of performing to thousands of screaming fans, and the camaraderie that developed behind the scenes. He recalls late nights in dressing rooms, the clinking of beer bottles, the endless conversations about riffs, lyrics, and the elusive pursuit of perfection. Ace had a way of making every moment feel monumental, of transforming the ordinary into something magical simply through the act of being present. Peter remembers the mischievous glint in Ace's eye during sound checks, the way he would experiment with sounds and effects, and how he never settled for anything less than extraordinary. These memories, Peter explains, are inseparable from the final moments, because they reveal the essence of Ace's character, his brilliance, his imperfections, his humanity. Peter also reflects on the quiet moments of vulnerability he shared with Ace in the days before his passing. He speaks of long drives, of sitting in silence while the world rushed past outside, of conversations that meandered from music to philosophy to personal regrets. Ace had a way of listening that was rare, a genuine attentiveness that made you feel heard in a way few ever manage. Peter describes how Ace would occasionally open up about his fears, his struggles with the pressures of fame, and his desire to leave a lasting legacy. There was a sense of urgency in those conversations, a recognition that time was fleeting and that the moments they shared were precious beyond measure. Peter's recounting is filled with the kind of intimate detail that makes the listener feel as though they were sitting in the car with him, experiencing the gravity and tenderness of those exchanges firsthand. But in this part of the narrative, Peter emphasizes the duality of Ace's final days, the juxtaposition of energy and exhaustion, humor and sorrow, presence and absence. He talks about how Ace could be exuberant one moment, lighting up a room with his personality, and yet retreat into introspection the next, wrestling with thoughts that were invisible to the outside world. Peter admires this complexity, acknowledging that it was part of what made Ace both compelling and, at times, difficult to understand. He recounts instances of laughter interrupted by moments of quiet reflection, how a guitar riff could trigger a cascade of memories, and how the music they created together became both a solace and a testament to their shared history. Peter concludes this portion with a reflection on the profound impact Ace had on his own life, both personally and professionally. He speaks of the lessons learned, the joy experienced, and the inevitable grief that accompanies the loss of someone so integral to your story. Ace Frehley was more than a musician. He was a force of nature, a source of inspiration, and a reminder that life, no matter how fleeting, could be lived with intensity, creativity, and authenticity. Peter's words carry the weight of someone who has loved deeply, lost tragically, and continues to honor that connection through memory, music, and storytelling. He leaves the listener with a sense of reverence, a feeling that Ace's presence, though no longer physical, resonates through every note, every story, and every shared moment. From the memories that linger in his mind, Criss delves deeper into the emotional gravity of Ace Frehley's last days. There is an intensity in Peter's voice, a solemnity that comes from having witnessed the decline of someone so vibrant, yet never losing sight of the essence that made Ace unique. He recalls the subtle signs that hinted at the fragility beneath Ace's flamboyant exterior. The moments when Ace would pause mid-conversation, lost in thought, fingers absent-mindedly strumming air chords, or when he would retreat for hours into solitude, leaving Peter and the rest of the band to wonder what weighed on his mind. These glimpses, Peter says, were part of the paradox of Ace, a man larger than life on stage, yet deeply human in his private struggles, a combination that made the final moments all the more poignant. Peter describes the atmosphere surrounding those last interactions with a cinematic clarity. The room, filled with instruments that had created countless anthems, held a quiet reverence, almost as if the walls themselves remembered every note, every laugh, every argument, every compromise. Ace moved through the space with a measured energy, simultaneously present and distant, aware of time's relentless march, yet seemingly unbothered by it. Peter remembers sharing stories of their earliest days, laughing about misadventures on tour, mistakes during recording sessions, and moments when the band's chemistry reached near magical heights. There was an undercurrent of nostalgia in every word exchanged, a recognition that those times were irreplaceable, and that the legacy they had created together was both unbreakable and bittersweet. Peter's reflection shifts to the quieter, more intimate moments that many never witnessed. He recalls sitting beside Ace, late at night, the hum of streetlights filtering through the window, both men enveloped in the weight of unspoken words. Ace, despite his public persona as the spaceman of rock and roll, often revealed a surprising, tender side during these private hours. He would speak about his fears, his regrets, and the fleeting nature of life, with a candor that could be disarming. Peter remembers listening, offering reassurance where he could, sharing his own vulnerabilities, and sensing a profound understanding that passed between them without needing articulation. It was in these private moments, Peter explains, that the true character of Ace emerged resilient, reflective, and strikingly human. Peter does not shy away from describing the physical and emotional fragility that became increasingly apparent. He recalls Ace struggling with fatigue, the toll of decades of performing, touring, and living under public scrutiny, evident in subtle ways. The way he leaned on furniture for balance, the pauses in his speech, the moments when his hands trembled slightly as they hovered over his beloved guitar. Yet even in vulnerability, Ace displayed remarkable strength. He continued to engage with his surroundings, his humor intact, his wit sharp, often cracking jokes that lightened the mood and reminded Peter and others that his spirit remained unbroken. These contradictions, the vulnerability paired with enduring brilliance, painted a complex portrait that Peter found both inspiring and heartbreaking. In recounting Ace's last moments, Peter emphasizes the interplay of humor, creativity, and reflection. He recalls Ace picking up a guitar for what would unknowingly be the final time, fingers moving over the strings with a combination of instinct and artistry that only decades of experience can produce. Peter watched, captivated, as Ace's music seemed to transcend the moment, a reminder of the timelessness of art and the enduring resonance of talent. Even as the shadow of mortality loomed, Ace's connection to music never wavered. Peter felt a profound mixture of awe and sorrow, recognizing that each note was a farewell, a message embedded in melody, a declaration that his essence would endure through the music he created and the lives he touched. Peter shares the emotions that accompanied the immediate aftermath of those final hours. He speaks of a surreal stillness, the kind of quiet that descends after a storm, when the air feels heavier and time seems suspended. He recalls moments of disbelief, the instinct to reach out, to say one more thing, to hold on to fragments of the past, and the familiarity of presence. There was grief, of course, raw and unrelenting, but there was also a strange sense of peace. Ace, Peter believes, left on his own terms, in ways that reflected his individuality. A departure consistent with the life he led, unpredictable, extraordinary, and unforgettable. The process of mourning, Peter notes, became intertwined with celebration. Honoring the man behind the mask, the friend behind the legend, the musician behind the persona. Throughout this reflection, Peter continually ties the end to the beginning, exploring how their shared histories shaped the meaning of those last moments. He recounts anecdotes from early performances, backstage chaos, and moments of creative triumph, connecting them seamlessly to the quiet intensity of Ace's final hours. Peter's storytelling captures not only the sequence of events, but also the emotions that accompanied them, the laughter that punctuated conversation, the warmth of camaraderie, the gentle teasing, and the unspoken understanding that bound them together. In doing so, he provides a narrative that is as much about life and friendship as it is about the inevitable passage of time. Peter also speaks to the legacy Ace left behind, both within the band and in the broader musical world. He emphasizes that Ace's influence cannot be measured merely by records sold or concerts performed. It is reflected in the inspiration he provided to countless musicians, the innovation he brought to the art of guitar playing, and the authenticity with which he lived his life. Peter highlights the importance of remembering Ace not only for his public achievements, but also for the personal connections he nurtured, the moments of vulnerability he shared, and the joy he brought to those who knew him intimately. This perspective, Peter notes, is crucial to understanding the full impact of Ace's life and final moments. Peter closes this part with reflections on grief, remembrance, and enduring friendship. He speaks of the paradoxical nature of loss, how absence can amplify presence, how memory can keep a person alive, and how music can serve as a bridge between the temporal and the eternal. He describes revisiting old recordings, rereading letters, and reflecting on moments that now carry a weight they never had before. Each memory, each note, each shared glance becomes a testament to the life they lived, the bond they shared, and the inevitability of moving forward while honoring the past. Peter's words convey both sorrow and gratitude, a recognition that while Ace may have departed from the physical world, his essence continues to resonate profoundly. Finally, Peter emphasizes the lessons learned from witnessing Ace's last moments. He speaks about cherishing time with loved ones, embracing creativity without hesitation, and confronting life's challenges with honesty and courage. He reflects on the importance of friendship, the transformative power of music, and the inevitability of change, framing Ace's departure not only as an end, but as a call to live fully, authentically, and with an awareness of the fleeting beauty of existence. Peter's narrative is at once intimate and universal, offering viewers a window into the human experience through the lens of two remarkable lives intertwined by music, friendship, and the relentless passage of time.